How's it going, everybody? This is Dave Meltzer. We're going to be here for the next 2 hours talking pro wrestling. We got a really good show tonight. Of course, Bryan, Alvarez is here. We're going to be taking phone calls. You can also email us to dave@wrestlingobserver.com, but you can call us at 1-800-878-PLAY. There are lines available, and since we didn't take calls for the most part the last 2 weeks doing the Hall of Fame shows, we want to talk this week about current wrestling, WWE, SummerSlam. You can also talk about TNA and some of the changes it's making, such as the elimination of the Wednesday pay-per-views starting in a couple of months and going to the weekly Sunday show. That is not a final decision, but it's pretty much happening. And it should be announced, hopefully, by the company within a week or two. And between SummerSlam and, of course, the Big Pride Grand Prix is coming up. UFC is coming up on Saturday night. In fact, we're going to have Randy Couture on during the second hour. We're going to have KONNAN on at some point during the show as well to talk a little bit about the Hall of Fame as it pertains to stars from Mexico and some current stars as well, and a little bit on TNA as well. And, Bryan, how was your week?
It's pretty good.
That's good. That's good. Bryan, I guess you saw the Noah pay-per-view from the Tokyo Dome. What are your thoughts on the show?
Well, I remember you sent me the tape, and you were very eager for me to see the tape, and I was very eager to see it. And I just remember watching, like, the first half of it and going, did Dave lose his mind? This show is, nothing special. And then by the end, I was like, that was one of the best shows I ever saw. And it was the same thing with the main event where about 10 or 15 minutes in, I was just watching and going, this is no better than any other match that I've seen recently. And then by the end, I was just in awe, and it was like one of the best matches I'd ever seen in my whole life, and one of the craziest. So I would highly recommend that tape to anybody who actually loves wrestling. So
I thought the whole second half of the show, from probably the Akira Taue to Kumasano match, tag team match on, and certainly
Liger
and Yoshinobu Kanemaru and the Kenta and Marufuji against Takashi Sugiura and Kendo Kashin matches, just fantastic.
Well, one of my pet peeves is overanalyzation of wrestling, but I was watching that Liger match, and I must have written like 10,000 words on it because it's a beauty. I mean, every great thing about wrestling was in that match, and I just loved it. So, top to bottom, that was one hell of a show.
Yeah, I mean, the Kobashi-Akiyama match was one of those matches where when it's over, you have to say it's one of the great matches, but at the same time, you don't want to watch those two guys ever do a match like that ever again.
No, never.
In fact, I was kind of mad they did it in the first place, but they did. It was kind of like, it kind of reminded me of the Undertaker-Foley match from Pittsburgh, except they also had a wrestling match to go with the Insanity.
Yeah, and it was great.
Yeah, a great wrestling match to go with it, rather than just the two crazy bumps. Y'all geared up for a big week this coming up weekend?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
I actually forgot UFC was this weekend.
The UFC is the weekend after, actually.
Oh,
first. The reason I got confused is because UFC and Pride I'm going to be watching on the same weekend, even though Pride actually is live this weekend. So I kept thinking, that's on Saturday, but it's a week from Saturday.
I would rather watch the Grand Prix live than SummerSlam, but that's just me.
Yeah, well, I guess, okay, prediction time.
Oh,
Since this is actually the last show we're going to be doing, because next week we're going to be doing tape shows. So if you miss one of the Hall of Fame shows, I think that's probably what will be up there because of SummerSlam. But let's start. Randy Couture, Vitor Belfort.
Randy.
Think so? Well, you have to pick him, because pick against him, he's winning for sure.
That's true. It's always impossible with Randy because what can you say?
Well, we'll talk to him later. So sooner or later he's mortal too. You know what I mean?
He is, but
the age should have caught up with him. It didn't, and
I think he's been on more of a roll than Vitor.
And Vitor's had his problems. I mean, they can't help, and then I don't know. There's a lot to that. Of course, that's actually a rematch of a match that went about 40 seconds where Randy got a fluke cut from Vitor's glove, and the match was stopped based on the dangerousness of the cut. They really didn't even have a match, so Couture's actually the challenger, even though everyone, when you think of the UFC light heavyweight champion, everybody pretty much thinks of Randy Couture, but he's actually the challenger in this fight.
I like how Randy actually made a comment a few weeks back where he goes, I don't really think the match should have been thrown up because nothing happened that was illegal or anything like that. He goes, I got cut open, I bled too much, and so they stopped it.
Well, that's what would happen. I mean, it's a stoppage. I mean, matches can go 30 seconds with a blood stoppage. It just, I mean, usually that's more of a pummeling rather than a, I don't know if you call it fluke, but it's what it was, and that's, when you have fights, sometimes things like that happen.
Yeah.
And it's also one of the reasons why, whenever someone says to me, like, about a fight that somebody has no chance, when the top guys are fighting each other, I'm not talking about, like, the top guy against nobody. When top guys are fighting each other and they go, this guy has no chance, I always go, it's a fight. There's always a chance.
Yeah.
I mean, things happen. You can get hit wrong. You can, go for a takedown and your knee goes out. I mean, it's a fight. And speaking of that, we got 4 guys in that Grand Prix tournament.
I knew this would lead to Ogawa.
It doesn't necessarily lead to Ogawa. I mean, I would say the odds of him are the longest of the 4, but, I don't think he's going to be Fedor, if that's what you mean.
No.
Who do you think in the tournament?
Well, I would be shocked if it were not Fedor and Nogueira. And once that match takes place, I guess from looking at history, it's Fedor's fight, but part of me thinks that Nogueira is going to win. I don't know why. I have no logical explanation for it, except that I just think that's going to happen.
I got to favor Fedor, but I mean the whole thing is it's like the big thing is who gets tougher first round fight.
Yeah.
And again, we don't know. Sergey Karatanov has never been beaten, and he's never been tested. We got no idea how good he is. I mean, obviously he's good to a degree, but we don't know how good he is on the Nogueira level. And Ogawa, for that matter, even if we've seen him fight more, we don't know how good he is on the Fedor level. I can't imagine him winning, but, flukes can happen, strange things can happen. I don't know.
I think it's a pretty good bet that Nogueira is going to have the harder first round, and that's going to work against him.
More likely than not, I think he's going to have the harder first round. But you don't know. I mean, if the thing goes to the ground right away and there's no, and Nogueira can submit him fast, you don't know. I mean, it may take, you don't know what's going to, And remember last year in the tournament where it was, Vanderlei Silva was going to destroy Yoshida and have an easy road, and he had the harder first round fight, Chuck Liddell and Quentin Jackson. I mean, really, Quentin Jackson rolled over Chuck Liddell. Chuck Liddell was injured. And, Jackson went in fresher realistically, although in hindsight people are trying to now claim that he didn't, but he did. and Silva still beat him anyway.
Yeah.
So there's, who's to know? Silva and Yuki Kondo.
I will say this. I think that Silva's going to win, but if I were to bet on any fight in the world, I would bet on that one.
For Silva?
No, against him.
Why do you say that?
Because I saw the odds, and the odds are heavily favoring Silva.
Oh, what are the odds? I haven't even looked at the odds at all.
I'd have to find them. I'll try and find them in a few minutes. But I think the odds, I think if there's ever a fight where you could win some money, I think that's the one.
Now, what odds are they giving with Dora and Ogawa? Check that out.
Okay, I'll find them. Hold on.
And Nogueira and Sergio. Just let me know. We'll talk about the odds later. Of course, SummerSlam coming up. I think.
I got the odds right here.
Oh, okay. Well, then let's get to the odds.
All right. Nogueira minus 260, and Sergey
okay.
Plus 200.
Yeah, those are too long to bet, I think. I'm not that confident that Sergey may not be really good.
Yeah, but we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
Fedor minus 280, Ogawa plus 220.
Those aren't good enough odds to bet on Ogawa.
Renelin minus 210, Waterman plus 170. That actually might be a good one to bet on.
Why? You think Waterman can win?
Yeah. I think Renelman can always lose. How about
that's true. Renelman can find a way to lose, but I don't think he's going to.
Well.
But yeah, who knows?
And then Silva minus 500 and Kondo plus 350.
Okay, yeah, for sure. I would agree with you. If I was going to bet on a fight, I'd bet on Kondo. Those odds are ridiculously long.
But
I mean,
please,
Kondo's a real guy.
Bet because we said so. Because someone reminded me that many years ago I said something like buy WWE stock and it plummeted. But so anyway.
Yeah.
Mirko minus 260. Alexander Emelianenko plus 200.
Okay.
And Bustamante minus 295 and Nakamura plus 235.
I bet Nakamura. I mean, the whole reason that fight's taking place is to give Nakamura a win. And the whole thing is that people don't realize, I mean, it's like Bustamante is the better fighter than Nakamura. Okay, better all around and all that. But Nakamura is a much bigger natural guy. And that's what, a lot of times people like will look at fights and look at who people have beaten and like let's say like a big name guy at 170 fights a guy at 190 and the guy at 190 beats him and they think that it's like, it's some big thing, not necessarily. Or sometimes when you'll have like a big name guy who's giving up 25 pounds. And I'll give the perfect example would be Frank Shamrock T. Ortiz, okay? I mean, Frank Shamrock did win that fight and everything, but people don't realize, you're talking about, like, the difference in weight. I mean, day of the fight, maybe it was 7 pounds, or the weigh-in difference was 7 pounds, but when they actually fought, it was like 25 pounds. And for the guy to win that fight, I mean, it's pretty much amazing. And in this thing, Bustamante is a 185-pound weight class guy who walks around at, 190 to 195. Nakamura is a 220-pound guy. Yeah. So natural. So you're talking about 35 pounds of difference, and that's a lot to overcome, even though Bustamante is the better fighter. So those odds, I would bet on Nakamura for the odds. I'm not saying he's going to win, but those odds are too long.
I can't remember what fight it was, but I remember I was trying to analyze some fight, and I thought for sure this one dude was going to win. And then down the ring with the other guy, and I'm like, holy crap, that guy's huge. And the huge guy won. And it was like the one thing that I hadn't even thought about was the weight difference. And
yeah. But anyway, let's get off of that and on to SummerSlam. Let's get on to Raw Monday. I really liked Raw on Monday, with the exception of the Divas, who are horrible, but that's another story. I thought the six-man was great. I thought the Helmsley-Regal angle was really strong.
I thought the Hunter-Regal angle was like one of the best things that I've seen in Raw in a long time, because those people were so angry at Hunter. Legitimately angry.
Do you know on that thing, the one thing I was thinking of when Regal came out there, this is the beginning of the show, not for the angle, and he starts doing the promo, and Regal was very good on the promo, excellent in fact, and I was just thinking, like, if you guys had any foresight and didn't squash Regal with Kane, people would take this match so much more seriously. And by the end of his interview, because it was such a great interview, they did take Regal seriously, but you could see it took time for that audience to really buy into, oh my God, Regal against Hunter. It's only because the interview was so good. If Regal did an average interview, nobody would have cared about that at all.
Oh yeah.
So
that actually reminds me of SmackDown, because they had Kurt Angle's first match back since WrestleMania for free on this horrible show, and they put him in the ring with Charlie Haas, which was going to be a good match and everything like that. And I guess they've had a past or whatever, but it was a cold match, and I just watched it in awe that they could be so stupid to do something like that.
Plus, here's the other one. When that match was over and they went 13, 14 minutes, and they had a good match. And, they're going to have a good match, okay? My feeling was, there's times that, there's times you have a good match, there's times that you, on television, not so much at the arena, but even at the arena in the right kind of program, but there's times that you have a good match. And I don't think Kurt's going to know this, but the people who run the WWE should know something like this. And this was not the time for Kurt to go out there and prove that he can do a 3-star match. I mean, we already know he can. This was the time for Kurt to go in there and do something devastating and make an impact on his first match back. And instead, he just had a good match with a good wrestler.
Yeah.
I thought the mentality behind that wasn't good. Overall, yeah. But Kurt's a lot lighter, and he looks in good shape. I don't know that he's got the wrestling win back, but I'm sure he'll have it back soon enough. So anyway, let's see if we're back on Monday. 6-man tag on Monday.
Awesome.
Yeah, I thought so too.
I mean, between that and the Regal thing, that was one of the best Raws in a long time.
Yeah, I felt in months. I would suggest this is probably a pretty good week to subscribe to the Observer. This coming week's issue is an issue I worked so hard on this week. Oh my God. History of wrestling, the Olympics, everyone who's ever professional wrestled and been in the Olympics, and there's a lot more than you think of, and profiles of the guys, which includes profiles of some pretty famous people, from Kurt Angle to Muhammad Ali, some people that you would be shocked. And anyway, for those of you into like that type of history, this that'll be it. Plus all the details of what's going on with TNA and their new changes. Bruno Sammartino talking about his deal with Vince McMahon and his meeting, and a lot of other stuff. And next week's issue is actually the issue coming out next week's issue, a week from this week, will be the Hall of Fame issue, which we've been talking about on the show for a couple weeks. So anyway, that should be fun. And that'll probably be one of the biggest issues of the year because it also will be covering the Pride Grand Prix that we've talked about. It's going to cover SummerSlam, G1 Climax Tournament, and I'm sure there'll be other things that happen involving Ric Flair's book in the next week because something always happens with Ric Flair's book. Brian, real quick, I want to ask you your opinion. What's going to be the best match at SummerSlam on Sunday?
Man, either Benoit and Orton or Angle and Eddie.
Okay.
And I'm not really sure which one.
I'm going to pick Benoit and Orton.
You may be right.
Which tells you how much I think of Chris Benoit these days.
Did you get the DVD?
No, I didn't get the DVD. Why don't you
after you get the DVD, for sure you'll be saying Benoit and Orton.
Well, I don't need to watch the DVD to know how good Chris Benoit is. I've been watching it.
Yeah, but you know what? I would have thought the exact same thing. Like, I know Chris Benoit's great. I don't need to watch a DVD of all his matches. But when I watched that DVD, I always thought of Chris Benoit as maybe one of the best workers that I've ever seen. But when I was done watching that, I was like, without question, I've never seen anybody better in my whole life. So this could, of course, change next week, but for right now, he is the best I ever saw.
I don't know if I'd go that far. I mean, he's among the best.
Yeah.
I don't know. You better watch a Kenta Kobashi DVD.
I just watched a Kenta Kobashi match.
I mean, I've seen so many unbelievable Kenta Kobashi matches in the last 15 years or so, especially from his second year in, maybe even, I'd say from second year in, he's one of the best in the ring that I have ever seen.
Yeah.
And there's others too. There's a lot of guys, that you could put in that realm. Let's see if there was anything else to talk about, going in. I think that's it. I think we'll start with phone calls. Well, anyway, Brian, anything big going on in Figure 4 before we go to phone calls?
We'll have the Big Noah Tokyo Dome show report, which could probably take up 2 issues. And I don't know. That's it for now. That's all I figured out.
Okay, you can go to www.wrestlingobserver.com. There's information on both Figure 4 Weekly and the Wrestling Observer newsletter. What's in the current issues, and we'll have something up in a couple days on what's in the new issue, which is the Olympic issue, which we're going to put out once every 4 years, or maybe never again. I don't know, but this was a piece of work. That's all I can say. So anyway, you can go to the website and get that info. Okay,
we are reviewing the Benoit DVD too, and this will probably take about 8 months since I guess there will be a review of all the commentaries in each of the matches as well.
Oh, so
Todd Grisham
have you watched
is horrible.
Todd Grisham?
It's been confirmed.
Have you watched Todd Grisham? Tell me about Todd Grisham.
He has no idea what he's talking about with anything.
He got exposed bad.
Yeah, and people wonder how Benoit Malenko did not kill this man in the middle of the commentary, which I think would have really added to the DVD, but it didn't happen.
It's again one of those things. I just find it impossible. Like if it was my job, okay, let's just say I was assigned to do a commentary on a political campaign, okay, something that I don't know a whole lot about, okay. I sure as hell would know enough. If I was, talking about the 1976 campaign, I would sure know, like, who the candidates and the vice president and all that were. I would know enough background information, that I wouldn't be as lost as this guy doing the J Cup, not knowing what the frickin' J Cup is. I mean, I'm not saying he should have known it, because the J Cup is such a big thing in the United States. I'm saying because he's commentating on it the day before he's commentating on it, or 5 minutes before he's commentating on it, he goes, okay, guys, being that Benoit and Malenko were both in that J Cup, I believe Malenko was, I'm almost sure. But anyway, Benoit certainly was because he won it. What's the J Cup? Explain it to me. And then he wouldn't be saying things like, is this for the belt? Did you wrestle all these matches in one night?
So a mask versus mask match, the loser has to unmask?
You didn't know that?
Oh, no.
Oh,
and then what happens? Do you put it back on?
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
And this is an organization
He survived, though. He made it through. No one killed him.
But this is an organization, think about this, this is an organization that wouldn't hire Mike Tenay to announce when WCW folded.
Yeah, but they got Todd Grisham.
Because he looks like Dean Cain a little bit. Okay, now we're going to really go to Jeff in New York. Jeff, you're first up. What's going on?
Hey, what's going on? I was just, comment on the Benoit DVD. I was watching it today. I have to support Bryan on Todd Grisham. He's really terrible. He's worse than Todd Pettengill. Much worse.
Todd Pettengill was pretty bad too.
Yeah, well, this guy's in his class of his own.
He makes Michael Cole look like Mike Tenay.
No, I wanted to comment on Benoit. After watching him, he really does pattern his style after Dynamite. So I wanted to.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, if you ever saw him when, like in the late '80s and early '90s, when he'd wear the blue trunks and he had the same body and the same haircut and the same snap suplex and the same diving headbutt. Yeah, I mean, that was his hero growing up. I will say this, for him, I'm certainly glad his hero growing up was Dynamite and not Ultimate Warrior, because we got a hell of a wrestler out of the guy.
I wanted to ask you guys your opinion. Who do you think not had a better career, but was better in the ring, Benoit or Dynamite Kid?
Benoit. What do you think, Bryan?
Oh yeah, Benoit.
Benoit was more complete. If you really watch Dynamite Kid night after night, where Dynamite Kid gets an edge is that he did it first, and there's something to be said for doing it first, and he was ahead of his time, whereas Benoit was in his time. I think Benoit was a little bit ahead of his time, actually, in the early part of his career. Now he's exactly in his time. But I think that Benoit's matches make more logical sense. I think Benoit is far more complete. Dynamite Kid was a much better or a much crazier daredevil, Then again, Benoit was, but he was, and that also is why his career was a lot shorter. But, no, I mean, I would say that you could make a strong case that Dynamite Kid was more influential than Chris Benoit, but I couldn't say that for sure for 15 more years, because we don't know what kind of influence long-term Benoit is going to have. But as far as match by match, they're different eras, and I hate comparing eras, but I think that Chris Benoit was more complete for longer.
Although if you asked Benoit, I think he would probably say that he couldn't hold a candle to Dynamite.
What?
I think if you asked Benoit...
Oh, yeah, I'm sure he'll say that.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Okay, anything else?
Yeah, I want to talk about Brock a little bit. Now, if this guy actually does a miracle and makes the main squad, makes the roster, as opposed to a practice squad or something, what type of impact do you think this would have on professional wrestling? Do you think, I personally think that people are going to say what they want to say, and regardless of if 100 wrestlers make it in football, it won't change. I mean, what do you guys?
I think that if 100 professional wrestlers made it in the NFL, the respect that wrestlers would get as athletes would increase an incredible amount. I think one guy, they're just going to say, well, I think that everyone now pretty much admits, and always, that there were always some great athletes in pro wrestling, because, in every era there were the guys, who, how do you say, Leo Nomalini, who was one of the greatest football players in his position in the history of football. He's on the, all-century team or whatever it was, the first 50-year team. How could you, and he was a professional wrestler in the offseason, so how do you say, he's not a great athlete? Everyone knew he was, but does it give wrestling credibility? In a sense, but again, there have always been NCAA champions in wrestling. There have always been Olympic medalists or Olympic competitors in wrestling, and to go from pro wrestling into a position, actually making the team if he actually would make the team this year, that would more be that. I don't know if that would be so much professional wrestling as much as just that Brock Lesnar is like an athlete of the level that, he never got credit for. Because to overcome all that, I don't see how he can do it. But I also expect, and I think it's already been borne out, that guy's going to be a really fast learner. And I knew that going in because, look at pro wrestling. He was a fast learner there. He's going to be just as fast a learner in football. It's going to, I don't know if he'll ever make it, but, I'll bet he improves incredible in the next 2 months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he will. No, I think the problem is, though, that, is that he's always going to have this. They did something on ESPN, I think, it was last week. They always have these wrestling references talking about him.
They will always have the wrestling references talking about him. Even if he makes it as a football player, that's going to be like his calling card as the guy who went from WWE champion to football. But if he does make it, he will if he actually makes the squad, I'll bet you he will be the most talked about rookie in the league this year, or one of the most anyway. So, maybe the most, because he's been getting talked about a lot for a guy who, most will probably not even make a team.
Yeah.
Okay, Jeff? Yep, that's it. We're going to go right to Chris in Vancouver. Chris, how you doing?
Good, guys. How are you guys?
Very good.
I have a couple things. First off, JBL versus The Undertaker at SummerSlam. I think that match should probably be on the first hour of SmackDown because there's no way I'm going to be paying $34 to watch JBL wrestle The Undertaker because JBL still, he hasn't done anything and he hasn't done anything for me to want him having that world title. I still think he's the worst champion in the history of the organization. First, I'll get your comments on that.
Well, I think he's among those champions in the history of the organization. As far as the match, they're wrestling each other all this weekend. I expect them to have an average match, if not a better than average match. I'm not super excited about the show, but I'm looking forward to the show. It's not because of that match. I think that a lot of the other matches will be certainly good enough. So, if it was the main event on the show and nothing else looked good, I would be feeling really bad that I wasn't going to get to watch Pride that day. But as it is, Benoit and Orton are going to have a good match. Angle and Guerrero are probably going to have a really good match. Helmsley and Eugene, I don't know.
I think you're right. It should be.
I don't know. It'll probably be okay.
It has the potential to be great, but it's not going to be that kind of match.
Kim in London and Rey Mysterio against the Three Dudleys could be really good.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing that no one's ever not seen before, but I think that just when I envision that match, I see it as a good wrestling match. So there's going to be good stuff on that show.
Right, and on top of the SummerSlam, Dave, can you clarify something for me? Back in '93, Luger faced Yokozuna for the WWE title, right?
The one in Auburn Hills, Michigan?
Right, yeah.
Yes.
The question is, was Luger at any point in his tenure supposed to have a title reign? Because I've heard stories that he has. I was talking
he was absolutely supposed to. Well, they spent the whole summer building up the title reign, and then the idea was that they felt that instead of giving him the title at SummerSlam, that they would make it a year chase, that he would, everybody thought he would win it at SummerSlam. He wouldn't win it at SummerSlam. Even though he would win, he'd get that fluke win, and then would build it up for Mania. By the time they got to Mania, they realized that Luger wasn't their guy, and Bret Hart ended up as champion. But Luger was absolutely... What would have happened if
he had won it?
What?
What do you think would have happened if he had won it?
If he had won the title at the SummerSlam?
Yeah.
History would have changed completely. He probably would have flopped, and Bret Hart would have been champion maybe a little later. I don't think, he would have had a better shot at making it if he had won the title then, but ultimately, in the long run, he's still Lex Luger, right?
Yeah.
So that's my gut on it.
Yeah.
All right, guys, thanks a lot.
Okay, very welcome. Let's go to Jonathan in Savannah. Jonathan.
Hey, what's going on, Dave? Bryan.
How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I have a couple questions for you, and I'll try to run through them real quick so you can get through all the other ones. But I want to know about what's the deal with Low-Key 01 parting ways?
Have they?
That's what
I hadn't heard that. You may very well be right. I'll try to check into that.
Maybe they want him to do a job.
I know that the manager there. There's two things possibly. Number one is that 01 is in some trouble anyway, and number two, Low-Key was hard to deal with over there. I hadn't heard. I'm not as stunned, but I hadn't heard it yet. That's all.
Okay. And also another part with the Low-Key question: is he running people the wrong way in Ring of Honor? Do you know?
Not this time yet, no. And the fact that he did a job last night certainly makes me think that that was probably good for him to do for everyone because it kind of made people stop looking at him kind of like, when's he going to screw us?
Yeah.
And then like he's actually on our team and he's going to play. So, but yeah, there's always, when you have a rep, everyone always is kind of, leery of you when you come back.
Okay. And my other question is the plan still for Orton to win the title, to win the world title?
I haven't heard anything new in a couple weeks. I'm assuming so, but I don't, I haven't even checked since about 2 or 3 weeks. I just guess. I don't know.
Okay. And
I got that idea.
I got two last quick ones. What's the deal with Heidenreich getting a push, and also what's the deal with Orlando Jordan?
Orlando Jordan?
I guess is he getting a push? I assume he came out and saved.
Yeah. With Ted DiBiase and Virgil, they're rehashing old ideas.
Yeah.
And John Heidenreich, they need a big guy to wrestle Undertaker after SummerSlam, and they don't got a lot of fresh big guys out there, and they got one in developmental. Actually, they got 2 in developmental, the other one being Matt Morgan, and hopefully, I think they think Matt Morgan's got the most potential of the 2, and they don't want to ruin him like they did the first time, so they're willing to ruin John Heidenreich because he has less upside.
Okay. And my last question is, I keep meaning to ask you when I call in, but is there any way that you could get Lance Storm as a guest? I know you can get Cornette,
I don't know. I don't know
what the deal is, how they are about.
technically he's on a WWE wrestler contract.
Is he okay?
Yeah, he's still under a wrestler contract. So, I mean, by the nature of his contract, he would not be allowed to do the show, and I haven't heard him doing any other shows. So I would guess that I couldn't get him if and when his contract expires, and then if he wants to, I'll contact him. If he would be available, and he's been on the show many times before, and was a very good guest. So
I was just curious, since he was like semi-retired, he's like non-active or whatever. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, but it's still under the same contract. So I mean, probably wait until WWE lets wrestlers do the show, which hey, it can happen tomorrow. I've been through 20 years with them. You never like they always it always comes around. But usually it's when Vince is in trouble and not financial trouble, but mental trouble. I mean, mental, not mental like he's going crazy. Well, actually, but mental as in he's feeling lots of pressure and he needs a friend, and that's when And right now, he's not losing money. I mean, his business is struggling in some ways, but he's making money and he's not under that mental pressure. So that's the nature of the relationship right now.
Okay, yeah, that was it.
Okay,
thanks a lot.
Okay,
what do you think of Orton winning the title?
What?
What do you think of Orton winning the title now?
What do I think? My gut tells me that Benoit is just really clicking, especially in the last couple of weeks, that Orton doesn't need to be rushed. Nevertheless, at some point, Orton needs to win going into WrestleMania because that's the direction they're going. So the question is this the right time or another month? I think it's okay.
Why not have him go into Mania as a challenger?
Against Hunter?
Yeah.
I think it's better keeping the belt off Hunter for a long time.
Well, he can keep it off him a long time, but a long time nowadays could be November.
And have Hunter beat Benoit?
Hunter beat Benoit.
Hunter beat Benoit in November.
Orton would chase him as a babyface.
Then Orton should be the babyface.
Yeah.
In the feud. Right now, there are angles that are coming up that if they cut the way I expect them to, Orton would not be the right guy to be a babyface. But I can also tell you this. That decision as far as who's the babyface in the Orton-Hunter feud has not been made.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it could go either way.
Yeah.
But based on what I expect to happen, I think that it would be better for Hunter to be the babyface. But he may not think so because I think Hunter has the mentality like Flair that it's... And Hunter is a better heel than he is a babyface. He can only be a babyface for so long before you just go, God, he's better as a heel.
Yeah.
So, Ken in Toronto. Ken, what's going on?
Hey, not bad. I got a message from your producer, Ira. He can't get KONNAN because of a phone problem.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I want to ask about one of the matches which could have great potential. How about the Booker T. John Cena match? It's the best out of 5.
Best of 5. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I'm really surprised they're doing it this way with the first match at SummerSlam because then it's like, it's not, you're telling people that it's not the important match. The important match is going to be on TV or maybe at a pay-per-view, in a month or two. So for SummerSlam, I don't like the idea. As far as best of 5 type series, I mean, certainly the highlight of Booker T's career, or one of the highlights, was the best of 7 deal with Chris Benoit. You got, a lot of the best of 7 things have worked real good at elevating both guys. And again, but one of the keys is also really good matches, and so pressure's on Booker because pressure's
on Booker.
Oh, don't you think? I mean, because Cena's got to be carried.
Yeah, but I can't see that the pressure would be on Booker for that. I mean, you got to hold up your end too.
Well, Cena's only so good. Booker's going to have to be the one to make him look better than he is. I mean, when you wrestle John Cena, that's pressure's to me on the guy that's wrestling John Cena. I mean, there's pressure on John Cena too, but he's not a great wrestler.
Yeah.
So, if you have Kurt Angle and John Cena like they're doing at the house shows, to me the pressure's on Kurt Angle, and he's responded to the pressure because all I hear is how great the matches are. So that means, okay, I mean, it's not John Cena that's making the matches great. I mean, he'll do the best he can, but he's limited. I mean, and, hopefully he'll improve, but, you can't count on John Cena to carry a great match. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I think I understand what you mean by the pressure's on Angle, but to me it's also like, if you're John Cena and you're in there with Kurt Angle and you can't have a good match, something's up.
But we know how good John Cena is. I don't think it's like, I mean, if John Cena was like someone who everyone thought was a really good wrestler, and then he had a bad match with Kurt Angle, you could go, wow, something's up. But when you got a marginal guy, I mean, like, it's always the good worker's job to carry the marginal worker, especially when the marginal worker is real marketable like John Cena is.
Yeah.
So
I just look at it as Cena there should be more pressure on Cena to get better.
Well, there is, but I think, and hopefully he will. I wonder how good he'll ever get, because some of that, like guys, you know what I mean, Brian, when and sometimes you're surprised and everything, but a lot of guys, when you see them in the first matches, even though they're green, you can really see the athleticism in them.
Yeah.
And John Cena doesn't seem to have that natural flow, that coordination of a super athlete, even though he was a good college football player at the Division III level. And I think, I don't know that John Cena, will ever be a great worker. I think that he will probably be a decent worker who can have great matches, because he'll work with a lot of good guys in his career on top in WWE.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. That's just my thought. Anything else?
Yeah, I just want to say here in Toronto, it seems like the city's just getting fired up for SummerSlam, and it's going to be an event. I just expect a hot crowd. Because
Toronto's a great city to run a big show, especially like a SummerSlam. And that'll help, and especially, when you have like a Benoit and a Randy Orton match, I think it's gonna be really hot in that city, and then some of the other matches too. I think Toronto. I always look to a pay-per-view in the right city more than if it's in Pittsburgh. I think we're just getting No Way Out next year. So anyway, we're gonna go to Patrick in Ontario. Patrick, what's going on?
Not much. How are you?
Doing pretty good.
Okay, so we got that Kane versus Matt Hardy match. What was it called again?
Do Us Part.
Okay, well, here's the scenario. To keep Lita and Matt Hardy together, why not have HBK make his return at SummerSlam and have HBK cost Kane the match?
Brilliant.
And
Would not be surprised to see that happen.
I pretty much expect that to happen. I don't know for sure, but I expect that there's a good shot that's happening.
Hopefully that feud between HBK and Kane will be awesome, I tell you.
I hope so. Because we're going to watch it either way.
I can't wait until next Sunday. It's going to be great. SummerSlam is going to be top-notch.
I hope so. Should be. Looked at the lineup. Most matches should be okay, and the good ones should be great. So should be a good show.
Hopefully the Kane versus Matt Hardy match will be okay. But if HBK interferes, it'll be a lot better.
I think that the pop will make it a good finish, if nothing else. If they do that finish, I think the finish probably will be good.
Yeah,
just because they've got an interesting and intriguing storyline. It could actually go either way. We're joined right now by Konnan from NWA TNA, who's a wrestling legend in Mexico. We'll talk a little bit about Mexican wrestling history and current TNA, maybe some other subjects as well. A little later on in the hour, we're going to be joined by Randy Couture, which we talked about before, who's challenging Peter Belfort for the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship on the 21st, a week from Saturday, in Las Vegas. So that should be very interesting fight, because they didn't have a fight the first time. It actually be the third match, because Randy Couture beat Peter Belfort in a match in 1997. Which Randy was a heavy underdog in, and every single fight that Randy Couture is an underdog in, he always wins. Konnan, what's your thoughts on that fight?
Well, it's an exciting fight, and I think, I was picking Couture in the last one, just like I remember you and I spoke before the Tito fight, and I told you that I thought Couture was going to beat Tito handily.
Yeah, and he did.
I just thought Couture would beat Nogueira, and, taking nothing away from, Belfort. Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought he would beat him, and I still think he will.
Okay. What's your thought as far as TNA going from, and this is not 100%, but, more likely than not, in November, going to monthly pay-per-views rather than the weekly pay-per-views?
Well, what can you do? I think it's a fiscal decision more than anything. I think that it's pretty hard to get anybody to buy a pay-per-view every week when they can watch, WWF for free, or a show that has bigger stars on, like WWF. I just think that if they can do the same thing WWF does, which is, give episodic TV, which leads to a monthly pay-per-view, I think more people are going to buy the pay-per-view, and at the end of the line, at the end of the day, that's the bottom line, right, is how much...
Yeah, now, I think that at that point, the TV, when you're doing weekly TV and you're not doing a weekly pay-per-view, I think that you need not necessarily more competitive matches, but more compelling storylines to weave into the matches, if you know what I'm saying. Because right now it's there's a lot of squash matches, trying to get guys in their holds over.
Right.
But you need to weave some good storylines and long-term storylines, and I think the pressure of doing a weekly pay-per-view kind of made that difficult anyway.
Right, yeah, of course. And like I said before, it's just hard to get somebody to pay for something every week. And I think that now they'll be able to plan their storylines way in ahead. They'll be able to get more intricate. They'll be able to let things marinate a little longer, and it'll be a lot more interesting. Can you imagine if WWF had a pay-per-view every week? Nobody would buy it either.
Yeah, it'd drive people crazy.
Yeah, it was a hard proposition going in, but we had to get on TV somehow, and they kind of went in backwards, right?
Yeah.
And, now, I mean, it's pretty obvious that, their flagship show, the Best Damn Sports Show, we've been able to beat them a couple times in the ratings. So obviously the crowd is out there. It's kind of weird because, you hadn't seen TV like that in a long time, just watching straight-up squash matches. It reminded of WWF back in the day. But I think now when they start putting interesting matchups, not only should the ratings go up, but it should also help the pay-per-view. I think it's good for right now. They're starting off really slow. They're not giving them too much, which makes the people want more. So when you do put on matchup on TV of two known stars instead of squash matches, it should help, I think.
It's not a secret that a couple months back, you were entertaining thoughts of going to WWE, and you decided, there were a lot of obstacles in your way, but ultimately you decided to stay with TNA. And what's your thoughts as far as your position in WWE or TNA?
Well, I think WWE and TNA both have the same problem. They're not doing business. And basically, without getting into names or particulars, because every time I do that, I get heat. Unfortunately, in this business, you can't keep it real. You always got to BS everybody. But in general, in both companies, a certain look or if somebody likes you supersedes actual talent. And I'm very against it because, as you know, Dave, I not only was a pretty big draw in Mexico while I was there, I was also the booker for AAA. And every year that I was there, we made a bigger profit than the year before that. And that's because I broke with the old taboo of never letting the younger guys in the main events. All the old guys that were trying to not let the younger guys go by, I made sure that didn't happen. And in essence, you were able to see Rey Mysterio and Juventud Guerrero and La Parca and Canelo Casas, who's now heavy metal, and all those guys. And, I just think that if somebody likes you in either company, you can do no wrong, and if somebody doesn't like you, you can do no right. And I've always said, listen to the fans. There's so many people that I could tell you right now. I'll give you an example in that company. Booker T, do you feel he's underutilized?
Well, not this week, but as a general rule over the last 2 years, of course.
Right, okay, not this week. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, of course.
RVD.
Oh, without question, he's underutilized.
Rey Mysterio.
Rey Mysterio, without question.
All right, in our company, look at 3 Live Crew. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, that's the bottom line. If you have a certain look or somebody in the office likes you, they're going to push you, and I just think that shouldn't supersede actual talent. And I think that's holding both companies down in a lot of ways. I think you make as many stars as you can, so if somebody gets hurt or somebody leaves the company, you have somebody to take their place, plus you have more matchups. In our company, it's just basically, who does anybody think can beat Jeff Jarrett right now? You know what I'm saying?
Well, they put AJ Styles in the X division.
Right.
I'm trying to think. Monty Brown and Jeff Hardy are
the only guy, Monty Brown, right now who's getting the Superman push. But other than that, there's, you know what I'm saying? You need to have about 6 to 8 guys that are almost on the same keel, so there's a lot of variables. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, they tried to do that not all that long ago when they had the 6 guys, going for the championship, I think, with Chris Harris and Ron Killings.
Right. But I think still at the end of the day, like I said, business is not being done. You need to get as many people as you can over, and the easiest way is to listen to the fans. They'll tell you who they like and who they don't like. And without getting the specifics, you can look at both companies. There's a lot of guys that aren't over and they're getting pushed, and you ask yourself why. And there's a lot of guys that, you know what I'm saying? Vice versa.
Oh, yeah.
So, I think that's hurting both companies. And so, like I said, to get back to your question, when I went over there, I saw the same thing over there that was happening in my company. So I said, I might as well stay where I'm at, and at least I have a spot there, and I don't have to start over again in WWF. And plus, another thing was they hated the fact that, I would do anything that looked like Cena, when in all actuality, he was doing stuff that looks more like what I was doing because I came out with it first. But, that's their boy, and they didn't want anything that looked like what he was doing. So there was no way I could do my gimmick there either.
Yeah. Now, when we're talking about, like, Mexican wrestling history, now, when you first started wrestling, you were basically recruited. They found you. You trained in Tijuana, and then you were an American pro wrestling fan as a kid, not a Lucha Libre fan as a kid, although you probably knew a little bit about it. But you learned Lucha Libre and its history, was it from the guys once you went to Mexico?
Right. Well, I grew up watching really Florida wrestling, then NWA. I was never really a big WWF fan, and then when I first went to Mexico, when I was like maybe 20 or 21, and the very first time I saw masks and capes, I thought, wow, this is incredibly cool. And then when I saw the cool dives and how wild they would get in there, I became immediately, hooked. And the very next day I was in there training. So I just liked, the whole supernatural feel of it, almost a superhero feel, because everybody wore a mask. I wore a mask, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought it was more geared toward kids, and it was really cool, and I just loved every aspect of it.
Are you looking forward to going back?
Yeah, I'm actually going back after 6 years. I'm going back like in about a month and a half. A lot of things have changed, but the one thing that hasn't changed is there hasn't been that many superstars since I got out. I would say the only superstar since I got out that's really been made is Shocker over in the other company, and that's about it. So guys like Vampiro, who had left for like 4 years, came back, and he got his spot right back. So I think I'll be able to do the same.
Do you watch the TV every week?
No, not every week. Who's this?
It's Bryan Alvarez.
Yeah, what's up?
Yeah. Now,
I don't watch it every week, but I do watch it every month.
Okay, now, when we're talking about different guys, I mean, one of the things that you and I discussed a while back, when it comes to the Hall of Fame, you don't see Liz Mark as a Hall of Famer.
No. Well, what is your criteria for a Hall of Famer, first of all?
It's kind of an ambiguous thing, but, it has to do with, drawing power, just that overall, that overall feel that you're large, the larger than life.
I think Liz Mark, I'm going to tell you why I think Liz Mark got in. I think because wrestling had not been on TV in 30 years in Mexico, it was deemed too violent. And it was seen within El Distrito Federal, Mexico City. It was seen in that area only. And so when finally they lifted the ban, a lot of the Americans, who were watching Galavision, one of the first high flyers they saw was Liz Mark, and they're thinking, wow, this guy's incredible. But there's, I think Super Astro should be in there before he was.
Now, what's your thoughts on, let's just say, Viano 3 and Blue Panther, since those were kind of like the leading Mexican candidates this year?
Okay, so did they have to be a big draw? Because sometimes I'll read the Observer, and it'll say something about, well, we're not going to put him in because he wasn't a big draw.
If you're a super wrestler like Chris Benoit, I don't think you have to be you don't have to be a great draw. I think that you should be a good draw, or a great wrestler, or a great draw and a good wrestler, or if you're Hulk Hogan, you could be a bad wrestler, but you're such a good draw that you got to go. You don't like a Hulk Hogan or a Perro Aguayo or Santo. Those guys, they're in line. They're totally in.
Right. I would definitely put Villano 3 in, and I would put him in before I would put in his Liz Mark and Panther. Yeah, I would put him in too. I think they're both Hall of Famers without a doubt.
Okay. Who else? The guys that you've seen when you were down there. Who would be the elite guys in your mind from the last? Let's say the last 30 years or so in Mexico, the ones that, were there, Pop, when you got there that had careers before, like, say, Death Missionaries or Fishman or Connect or some of these people.
Probably Paulo Dantes, even though he was a big bully, kind of like Billy Robinson was.
Mm-hmm.
He was as good as any shooter in the United States. The only thing, he was just a real big bully, and when his son got into the business, because that's Alfonso Tanques Dantes, when Apollo got in, and this sometimes happens in the United States too, you get beat up for the things your dad did, so he went through a really tough time. But I think without a doubt, Negro Casas, who Chris Jericho always used to tell me was the best wrestler he ever saw there, and I think he was all around, because he could wrestle anybody, he could make anybody look good, he could make you laugh, he could make you mad, he was a good high flyer, he was a great base, which is something that a lot of people don't understand. All these guys that are doing flips and are being, you need a base, you need somebody to hold you and to know how to apply pressure and leverage, and that's just as important. That's why Blue Panther was so great, because when they were making El Hijo del Santo, and they were making a lot of these other guys, they always brought Blue Panther in as base. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think Negro Casa should be in there. I think that a lot of the Fuerza Guerrera, who I thought was one of the greatest wrestlers I ever saw, same mode as Negro Casas, just very quick on his feet, could make anybody look good, and always very enjoyable to watch. But I think a lot of the trios, that's what I like the most. The trios, like when Fantásticos, when Kato, Kung Lee, Kung Fu, and Kendo were together, I thought they were the most incredible thing I'd ever seen, because they were just so revolutionary. They were so quick. Kendo, you remember him, Dave, right?
Of course, yeah.
He was incredible, and he used to be in a circus. So he did stuff I'd never seen in my life, you know. And you see Los Arqueros, which was like Danny Boy, Robin Hood. If anybody could get these tapes, believe me, they're worth watching. They would go in and do all these codes and counter codes that you don't see anymore. Then they do a real incredible high spot, and then they'd go into an incredible finish. And it was just great. You know, those guys to me were great. I think a young dandy was incredible. I'll tell you who was real good, who should be in the Hall of Fame, La Fiera. I think
in the 80s,
yeah,
he was, you know, before he had all the problems, in the 80s he was awesome.
He was the ultimate high flyer and did not give a damn, you know.
Now, what about throwing out a name that you know you saw a ton of that was a super talent, and it's Jerry Estrada.
Jerry Estrada, yeah. I think when Jerry, La Fiera, Mocho Pota were together, and they were called Los Rockeros. I mean, these guys were, what was so great about them, they were almost like putting Axl Rose and, you know, Kurt Cobain, like just think of three rock stars together who also happened to be wrestlers. They were super over with the ladies, they were super over with the guys, they were revolutionary, and they were just, they had no fear. Of course, now you watch them walk, and they're all paying a big price for it.
Yeah, yeah. We had one question from someone who called in. Mike from Tampa wanted to know whatever happened to Barry Windham, and Barry Windham doesn't wrestle much, some in the Southeast. He's now 44 years old, and he wrestles for IWA in Japan fairly often. They do like 1 week tours every month or so, and he's a regular on it. Was teaming with Mike Rotundo, of course, who has retired, just retired. They use a lot of the older wrestlers from the 80s, like the original Fantastics. They had Marty Jannetty, Robert Gibson, Steve Dr. Death Williams, Road Warrior Animal, are the biggest stars in that promotion. Okay, we are going to get right now to Randy Couture. Randy, how are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
We're doing really good. How's the training going?
Training's good. Winding down. Last couple hard days here, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and we started tapering and kind of slide right into the fight on the 21st.
Now, what is the difference? Now, have you ever done the thing, you know, a lot of the fighters, especially in Pride, you know, are ending up, you know, taking fights on, so let's say, you know, 10 days notice, 2 weeks notice, not getting their opponent until, you know, a couple of days before, whereas in UFC with you in this one, with this fight with Vitor, you know, you had, you know, all the time you would ever need to prepare, you know who you're fighting, strategic-wise, in preparation, what do you think are, obviously well, what do you think is the best, is the flaws or so in the system, I guess, or just compare the two ways?
Well, I think having the notice and knowing who you're fighting ahead of time is certainly a much better situation as an athlete. I've been fortunate in just about all my fights, except for the first couple. I knew who I was fighting, and I had time to formulate a plan and come up with a peaking phase of training and really be 100% and prepared to have a peak performance when fight night came around. And unfortunately, it seems to me the way that Pride has been operating, and I know this because I've been representing and helping Dan Henderson for years, who's been fighting for Pride, and it seems that, you know, very short notice he finds out who he's fighting, and it goes both ways. They just pulled him from this Pride. He was training and ready to go, and they were still trying to tell us they didn't have a suitable opponent, and then they decided to pull him from the card at the last minute, too, which was frustrating. And so I think as an athlete, certainly it's better to know.
You know, you fought Vitor Belfort twice, once in 1997, once a couple of months ago, and when you know, he's obviously, you're both different people than you were 7 years ago in different ways, a lot more experienced and all that, and you know, because the sport was, in some ways, it was a lot more primitive then, you know, just in the sense of what people have learned, because it was only 4 years old when you fought the first time. When you're fighting Belfort, I mean, coming off, I mean, did you feel a sense of, obviously frustration that you lost the championship, but also frustration in the sense of, here you were, you trained so hard for that fight with Vitor, and all that conditioning, you know, it, in a sense, you know, it didn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, that was the most frustrating part. I don't really go into these fights thinking too much about winning or losing. I wasn't too concerned about losing the belt that wasn't really the frustrating thing. But to put that much time and energy into a game plan and conditioning my body and getting ready to compete, and then getting to get out there and compete for maybe 20 seconds was frustrating. And so it's certainly nice that we get to step up and have this fight again and kind of hopefully settle this properly one way or the other.
Now, didn't you mention that they should change the blood stoppage rule?
I don't know that they've changed any of the rules. I know they.
No, I mean, if you were running the sport, would you change it?
Oh, if I was running it?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about the blood stoppage rule. I don't know there was an issue of blood that stopped the fight. It was the nature of where the cut was, and I don't think that they made a bad decision in stopping the fight. I had a cut on my eyelid, which would have made it impossible to fight with one eye, and not that I'd want to anyway. So I think it was more a function of where the fight was, not so much the blood, because it didn't actually bleed very much at all. I think what they need to look at is having the titles change hands in a situation like that, where they can't go to the scorecards. It's not a situation where you can go and look at the scorecards as he was leading. So almost like an incidental headbutt or something like that, they need to maybe rule that a no contest. And I wouldn't certainly be unhappy if that were to change because of that fight. It did change the gloves. They rolled the seams on the edges of the gloves under and stitched them better. So hopefully we'll never see a situation like that again.
When that thing happened and you're in the ring and you're fighting a dangerous guy with fast hands, were you? I mean, and you don't know what's going on, but something was going on with your eye and you're not being able to see. I mean, what was going through your head at that moment?
Well, I couldn't figure out what happened. I knew I didn't get hit. I mean, when you get punched generally. And I knew it didn't feel an impact, and so I couldn't figure out why my eye wouldn't open. My first inclination was that maybe I got poked in the eye, but I've been poked in the eye extremely hard in the past, and I know what that feels like, and that's not fun. And so it wasn't that sensation. And so I just couldn't figure out why my eye wouldn't open, and I was basically just kind of stuck there in the clinch, hoping that my eye was going to open when John noticed something was wrong and stopped the fight.
Now, in a couple of weeks, the Olympics are starting up. It's imminent, and you were a contender for the Olympics a couple of times. You were in the hunt and everything like that. In your career as a wrestler, I mean, looking back on those years, what are your thoughts as far as the Olympics, not ever going to the Olympics? Is that perhaps one of the reasons you're still active now? Because I know, this is an example with Dan Severin. He had told me that one of the reasons why he stayed active, so long as a wrestler was because he was so frustrated about, not making the Olympic team. If he had made the Olympic team and done something, he probably would have retired after that. Like a lot of wrestlers, when they win a medal, they retire.
Yeah. I'm a pretty competitive person, and I've enjoyed the training and enjoyed the competition immensely. And I think I'd gone as far as I could go in wrestling. I didn't see myself going another 4 years to try and make another Olympic team. And so I was kind of satisfied that I'd accomplished everything else that I'd set out to accomplish in wrestling, and was comfortable hanging up the wrestling shoes, and then filling that competitive void with fighting. Or I probably would have gone nuts not having an outlet for training and competition. But fighting has been good, and enjoyed fighting. It was hard to juggle both wrestling and fighting when I was doing that. So it was kind of nice to be able to jump into fighting and just concentrate on being a complete fighter and 100% fighting. And I've never really looked back. I've certainly disappointed in the occasions that I was, the number one guy going into the final trials and then came up short. I mean, anytime you lose, it's a disappointment, but you find a way to analyze what you've been doing and come back and compete again another day.
When it comes to wrestling at the Olympic level, and just making the team, and you've got a certain number of guys, and then in the Olympics you've got even more guys. And I mean, there's some guys that have been around historically that were just absolutely dominant, best in the world. But in most, I would think more often than not, there are many, many guys, and it's a break and it's a takedown here, and I mean, like, they're close calls and a lot of close calls, and it's just breaks falling your way, and obviously the conditioning and the skill. I mean, is it, you know, I mean, you look at, like, because I've just been, like, looking at a lot of the history of a lot of the guys in Olympic wrestling, and you can really see that the difference between, you know, being someone who wins a gold medal and, in some cases, being someone that even gets out of the Olympic trials often isn't all that much. I mean, as far as, I mean, it's much that you did it, but I mean, as far as, you know, with a little bit of luck, you know, somebody else that didn't even make the team, you know, with a break here and a break there, could have been good enough to win a gold medal even.
I think that, you know, my own experience, a perfect example of that is in 2000, losing to Garrett Lowney, 3-2. He goes on and makes the team and wins a bronze medal. Obviously, he had a great performance at the Olympics, and it could have just as easily been me, you know, by 1 point making the team, and then I could have gone to the Olympics and not achieved that, not, you know, sometimes it's in the draw, sometimes, you know, who's hot and who's not on any given day, and in the nature of the sport, any guy that's stepping up at that level is very accomplished and a very tough competitor.
You're joined by Randy Couture, who will be facing Vitor Belfort on the 21st in Las Vegas, a week from Saturday on pay-per-view, the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship. He lost the championship in a very unique match, very strange match. He was sliced in the eyelid by Vitor Belfort's glove, and a punch that either grazed him or missed, or barely grazed him. And it was 20, 30 seconds into the fight. It had to be stopped. And if you were watching the fight that night, there's no question it had to be stopped at that point. It looked really dangerous. In fact, there was some concern, at least the night of the fight, that Randy, your career would be over, I think. I mean, that was the original stuff that we had heard. And a couple of days, I guess, a day or so later, we heard it wasn't going to be that bad, and you'd be ready to train, and you'd be ready to fight fairly soon. And did you ever hear that? I mean, was that over-exaggerated, that your career was in jeopardy maybe for a little bit after the fight?
Well, I mean, sure, in the arena at that time, there's always that question, especially when you're 41 years old. But I think their concern was where the cut was. Your eyelids are kind of the windshield wipers to your eyeball, and if you don't get those stitched up properly, then your eyelid doesn't close, and your eye will dry out. You'll have to put drops in your eyes for the rest of your life. And I don't know if that's necessarily career-ending, but it's certainly not something I wanted to do. So, I mean, they got it stitched up by a specialist that night, and he did a great job. It healed, and I had to stitch it out in 9 days, and the inflammation in the eye and the scratch in the cornea all healed up fairly quickly. And so in about 2 weeks, I was training and ready to go. You know, well, not ready to go, but training again anyway. And certainly would have preferred to have the rematch in April or the June card, but Vitor had some issues in his personal life that he needed to settle with his sister and so forth. And so we agreed to do it at the end of the summer, and here we are, 2 weeks out.
Now, if you were to put Randy Couture of today at 41 in the ring with Randy Couture at 34 when you first came in, what are the pluses or minuses of each Randy Couture as compared to the other one?
Well, I think all the way across the board, I'm a better fighter now than I was then. I have better striking skills, a better understanding of the sport, better submission defense. I've got a much better ground game, and I think training overall, my conditioning and training regimen is smarter and better now than it was then. I've changed my diet and fixed some things that have made a big difference in my ability to train and prepare for fights.
One of the things that's been talked about, and you talked about last time you were on the show, is the change in your diet. You have a very unique diet, and I mean, how do you attribute the diet a lot to your longevity? Because let's face it, there are some people fighting at 41, but you know they're not challenging for championships, and this is a real hard sport for someone at any age, and you know it's definitely a unique story. I don't expect us to have if this sport goes forward, having a ton of guys 41 at the level that you're at right now.
Well, I certainly think in the last year and a half, the success that I've had is partly due to the change in diet. It certainly allowed me to come down to light heavyweight, not lose a bunch of strength, and feel like I cut a bunch of weight and compete very well there. and that was largely due to the diet. You know, I think that as a fighter, I've evolved and figured out some training tools and figured out some ways to measure my fitness and keep my fitness level pretty high on a pretty regular basis. Live a pretty clean lifestyle and I'm pretty focused on what I'm doing. So there's not many distractions that take me away from putting myself in competitive shape and being in there. So the diet is certainly recently one pretty good piece of that puzzle.
Now you've done some acting. I think you were on Oz, and I think you did a movie a couple months back as well. The HBO movie, maybe?
That's right. That movie's just now finishing post-production, and I think they're still figuring out where it's going to be sold and where exactly it's going to show up. It's going to go straight to DVD, or if it's going to show up in HBO. I don't think they know yet. I know both those options have been discussed, but I'm basically just an actor in that situation, and I don't really have privy to that information. I did just recently get a trailer for the movie, and the trailer looks good, so I'm excited to see the finished product, and I had a great time doing the movie. It's called No Rules, and I guess I would liken it to a Karate Kid MMA style, and I get the opportunity to play the bad sensei. So it was a lot of fun.
Now, when I heard from Frank Shamrock, who did that movie with you, that, you know, I mean, you were working incredibly long hours, but, you know, like, and everybody else is just kind of like getting, you know, when you work that kind of hours, you're eating what's in front of you, and you're not going to the gym, and you were the exception. I mean, you were, if it's, you know, midnight when you were done filming, you went to the gym midnight, and, you know, he was basically marveling at your dedication. He was going like, you know, I mean, you hear those stories about dedication, but I mean, when you see it, I mean, you know, he had every excuse not to train, and he always did.
I found opportunities to train. I tried to pick, you know, good foods. The food was actually pretty good. The catering and all that wasn't bad. They do a pretty fair job at that. But there was a gym on set, and in fact, they had an octagon set up for a lot of the shots. Matt and I managed to get in there a couple times and train in their octagon. We found opportunities to train, but it was a challenge. It was difficult. We did work, you know, 10, 12, 13-hour days, a lot of days, and a lot of that is pretty sedentary. You're sitting around waiting for the next shot. There's total chaos around you, so you have trouble even reading a book because there's so much going on around you. But you know, you find a way to get some workouts in and kind of at least maintain your level of fitness. Went to you know, Sidekick Academy. The lead character in the movie was David Dunn. He runs school there in Valencia, and managed to get on that a couple times there, and you know, it was good.
Now how did you know, you're in a team with, you know, it started out Team Quest with Dan Henderson, who's an Olympic wrestler, Matt Lindland, who was a silver medalist in the Olympics. So you guys all, you know, you were all Greco-Roman guys who had a similar background. Now, were you friends living in Oregon? Going into your mixed martial arts career, or were people who knew each other that they I know you're from Oregon, but did they gravitate towards Oregon to train with you when you kind of became a team?
Well, interestingly enough, Dan Henderson, Matt grew up here, but Matt had moved away through college and was living in Nebraska coaching. Danny moved up here to train and be closer to train with me because we had always done kind of a trade system where I'd go down to California and train for a fight or for a couple months leading up to the Nationals, or he would come up here into Oregon and train, and him being single at the time made more sense for him to move and alleviate some of that travel. So he moved up and lived here in Oregon for about a year and a half, and then at that time we kind of formed Team Quest. And that was rolling into the 2000 Olympic trials. We were training for wrestling and fighting to kind of pay the bills, and Matt left his coaching position in Nebraska and moved back to Oregon, where he grew up. And of course, we all knew each other very well from the national team, being on tours and training and traveling together with the national team. And so it was a natural fit for us to start training together, and that turned into the Team Quest that exists today, with the addition of Robert Follis, who was a kid that I've known for 5 or 6 years, almost since I started fighting, and he kind of had the background of how to run a gym and been involved in a lot more traditional martial arts and martial arts schools, and so he was kind of the final piece of the puzzle that brought the business know-how and a lot of the technical martial arts know-how to our wrestling background, and we married those two together and haven't looked back.
Now, at 41, you have to be thinking about your future after fighting. I don't know how many fights you're going to have left. Do you want to stay on as a coach? I know you coach high school wrestling, or stay on, representing people and involvement in the sport, maybe in a, administrative thing, helping, from that standpoint, helping the sport grow. Are you really into this sport as something you want to devote, your retirement years to, or not, the next couple of years to after fighting?
Well, I think that I can do all of those things. I'm kind of helping out as an assistant coach at the high school now. I've been doing that for 5 years, and I think that I can continue to do that. I'm certainly content and happy to work with the fighters that we have in our school, and the school is doing remarkably well. The sport is really growing at that level, at that grassroots level. I would like to be involved in some way, shape, or form with the sport. It's been good to me, and tried to represent it in a positive way, so hopefully I can continue to do that. If I play my cards right, I'd love to be able to retire from fighting and not really have to worry about working. But you never know. We'll see what happens.
As far as that goes, I mean, how many fights are you? I mean, how many fights are you looking at, or have you're just taking it one at a time right now?
I've always kind of taken it one at a time. I've signed on for 3. This is the first of 3 fights on this contract, and certainly my intention is to fulfill the contract and then reevaluate and see what I want to do after that. But it's going well. I'm physically holding up very well. Mentally, I'm having a blast. It's gone way further than I ever expected it, and having the time of my life. So,
do you have a dream fight?
A dream fight? At this time, every time I get a chance to compete, it's a dream fight. I would love to fight Vanderlei Silva. I think everybody thinks he's the number 1 fighter around right now in this weight class, and I think that I'd give him a hell of a match, and so I think that would be a dream fight, and it probably is a dream considering the 2 organizations will probably never come to any agreement to make it happen. So,
when you started in this sport 7 years ago, coming out of Olympic caliber Greco-Roman wrestling, what has been the biggest surprise in this sport when you look back at what you were expecting and what turned into be?
Well, I mean, that certainly has changed a lot. At that time, it was kind of a fringe sport and a bit of a freak show. Not a lot of rules. You could pretty much do just about whatever you wanted, and with few exceptions. And so the sport itself has changed a whole bunch. I think the level of athlete and the guys that were involved now and the skill level is just gone through the roof. But it's certainly gone a lot further than I ever expected it to go. At that time, it seemed like it was going to level off and stay at that. I didn't see the owners of the company at that time, SBT, doing the things that I thought needed to be done to see the sport grow. Although it felt like the potential was there for the sport, with the fan base that we had, I didn't see us making any headway. And certainly now with a lot of the things that have been done with marketing and exposure, we're getting now a lot more mainstream type of exposure, mainstream media attention. This sport is growing huge. I mean, I can't go anywhere around here in Portland without being recognized by somebody, and that's certainly a lot different than it was when I started. And I don't think it's only going to get more and more that way. This new reality TV show that they're coming out with is going to be a great venue and vehicle to kind of break down some more of those walls that people have about our sport and misconceptions about who we are and what we do. So I'm looking forward to this next year and seeing what that brings.
Okay, we've got to. That's pretty much all the time that we have. And anyway, we'll be back right after this. Wait, is this the last break? I can't really tell.
This is it. We're done.
We're done? Okay. All right. Randy, I want to thank you very much for joining us tonight, and thank everyone for listening in, and we will be back live. Actually, we won't be back live for a couple weeks because next weekend, of course, is SummerSlam, and the weekend after that is the Pride pay-per-view, We'll be back actually on the 29th live. So until then, Dave Meltzer signing off. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Radio Network.